Hello, welcome to Chapter 7, which you get to enjoy from the comfort of your own home or dorm room or the library, wherever you're at and you're going to watch this presentation. I would encourage you to have your Chapter 7 slides with blanks available so that you can fill in those blanks. And please don't turn off the voiceover or just quickly click through the slides, because anything that I verbally state that's not on the slides but is important is fair game for exam 2. So this chapter will be on your next test and we will not talk about it in class. It will only be done through this online presentation. So without further ado, info from chapter. What are we going to talk about? It's a nice short chapter, kind of tying together a lot of the things we've done so far. So we need steps for a fitness plan. If your goal for the 30-day challenge is fitness related, you're going to get stronger, faster, you're going to lose some body fat, you're going to be more flexible. Do you have a great plan in place? Even if you have a great plan, let's just double check that it's the best possible plan to set you up for success with that goal. Then we'll need to select training components that will be a part of that plan. So you know what you want to improve, how exactly are you going to do that using the components of health-related physical fitness that we've learned about for the last month and a half. Some strategies that will help you implement the plan that you make or made. The importance of fitness during life stages. So it kind of switches gears partway through the lecture and we talk about what if someone is pregnant or when people have accidents or injuries or are born with different abilities. What do they need to do differently? A little bit about changes that occur as people get older. Some special considerations for your senior or your elderly clients or patients. And then lastly, maybe your goal is not fitness related. Maybe your goal for the 30-day challenge is to be less stressed through meditation or journaling. Maybe you're going to drink more water. Some of you had some great financial fitness related goals. You were going to try to save a little bit of money each day by not eating out as much or not buying drinks, maybe not going to Starbucks every day. So maybe your goal is a different component of wellness. Awesome. Will the plan be a little bit different and the way that you do your planning be different? Yeah, just a tiny bit. And we'll talk about that at the end of this chapter. So let's start with a fitness plan. You have a fitness related goal. Step 1, set that goal. Make it really specific. Make sure that it's realistic. If it's a big goal, start with short-term goals. So your goal is to run your first half marathon. Your goal is to lose 50 pounds. You're going to shave a minute off your mile time. Those are all awesome, realistic goals, but we're going to have to do smaller short-term goals on the way there to make sure that we're going to be able to attain that bigger goal because it's going to take a longer time. We don't want to get frustrated on our way to that big goal. So measurable goals. What can we measure? We can measure how much we weigh using a scale, our percent body fat using underwater weighing or calipers or DEXA. We can measure how much water we drink in a day, how much junk food we eat in a day. We can look at the number of minutes we spend meditating or studying for a class. I can't measure your happiness, neither can you, with a realistic scale. So are you happy on a scale of 1 to 5? 2 is pretty similar to 3, 4 is really happy, 5 is super happy. Can't really measure your happiness or how relaxed you are in a concrete numeric scale. So if you have a great goal like drink more water, eat less junk food, be more happy, spend less time stressing, make it something specific that you can actually measure, something you can write down. And then we talked in class about rewards. Every time you reach a short-term goal, do you get a little treat? Do you get a break? Or some people, like we discussed, respond better to punishments. So maybe your reward system is simply, let's say you're going to limit the amount of time you spend every day playing on your phone, and you're only going to spend 30 minutes a day. If you go over 30 minutes on any particular day, the next day your limit's smaller. So today you spent 45 minutes. That means tomorrow you're going to shoot for 20, almost as a punishment system, something you're going to take away because maybe you do better that way than having a reward. So establish a reward or a punishment system whenever you reach or don't reach your goals. Apps are a great tool. They're a really great tool, especially if you're not so good at writing things down. So there's a lot of research that shows putting your goals in writing, being as specific as possible with those written goals, sets you up for success. People are more successful when they write down their goals. But maybe writing really isn't your thing. You are horrible at carrying around paper. You never have a pen. You write stuff down and you lose it. But you never lose your phone, or if you do, you really freak out compared to losing a notebook. So if you have a smartphone, or you're one of those people that's just really into technology, you've always got your phone, you've always got your computer, lots of apps out there to keep track of fitness related goals. Tons of them are free and really great free apps. So these aren't comprehensive lists. You're going to find lots of great apps if you just do a quick search, or ask someone. If you know someone who uses a fitness tracker, they have a Fitbit, they're always talking about how they track their macros when they eat. Well, ask them what they use and then maybe give that app a try, see if it's something that would work for you also. So we set our goals. Now, step 2, what are we going to actually do to achieve those goals? So they're fitness related goals. Now we look at the goal and we say, okay, my goal was to have better endurance. That's a cardio goal. My goal is to be able to tie my shoes without having to pick my leg up onto something. I'd love to be able to touch my toes. I haven't been able to do that in years. Then you've got flexibility goals. So look at the 5 components of health-related physical fitness that we've talked about. Where does your goal fit in? A good rule of thumb is your goal should probably fit into 1, at the very most 2 of these categories, because we want it to be something attainable and specific. If your goal is just, I want to be in better shape, so I want better endurance, I want to be stronger, I want to be able to run for longer, but I also want to be a lot more flexible, and I'd love to lower my body fat percentage. Can you do all those things at the same time? Technically, yeah, you can. It's probably going to be more achievable and more realistic to pick one thing at a time. Focus on getting stronger now, and then when you're stronger, maybe focus on your flexibility, or focus on decreasing your body fat percentage, then focus on your endurance. So your goal should probably fit into 1, maybe 2 of these, because they are all very related and interconnected, but 1 or 2 of these categories. So you look at your goal and you say, okay, this is definitely a cardio goal. It's also kind of a muscular endurance goal, because not only do I need the lungs to run longer, I need the muscles to run longer so I don't end up with baby deer legs. So 1 or 2 of these categories, and you've got your specific goals. You now choose the exercises based on those categories to do the thing you want to do. You have cardio goals, you're going to do some cardio. You have muscular strength goals, you're going to do some strength training. All things we've talked about, just bringing it all together. Step 3 is making the actual routine. So step 2, you picked out the exercises and you said, okay, I've got cardio goals. I like using the elliptical. I can go to the track 2 days a week. I have a bike at home I can use and ride around the neighborhood. I have a stationary bike at my apartment complex. Step 3 is actually writing down, what are you going to do with those specific exercises? The more specific, the better. So you said that your goal was better cardio endurance and therefore better muscular endurance. Step 3, you're going to write down, okay, on Monday, I'm going to spend 15 minutes on the bike at level 3, followed by 10 minutes on the track with my heart rate between 160 and 175 beats per minute. It says weekly routine here, but I'm really going to recommend that you write day by day what you're going to do. Simply saying, okay, every day, all week, I'm going to do 30 minutes of cardio. You're probably a little bit more likely to achieve that goal if Monday you have a plan, Tuesday you have a plan. Maybe Wednesdays you rest because you've got a lot going on with school. Put that in your plan. Write down very specific day-by-day goals for what you're going to do. And then step 4, monitor your progress. Are you actually doing those things? So whether it's in your phone, on a spreadsheet, written down in a journal, this is where you go through and you basically say, okay, Monday, did I do everything that I had written down to do? Yes, check it off. That's all you got to do, make a check mark. Or maybe you make a note to yourself. Didn't make it to the gym, feeling sick. Cool. Tuesday, you write, did all this plus 10 minutes of stretching. It's your own goal, it's your own plan. So maybe you allow extra time to carry over into the next day. I can do 10 minutes less tomorrow if I did 10 extra minutes today. You skip tomorrow, then you got to do twice as much the following day. Maybe it's just for you to be able to look back after a period of weeks or months and say, man, every time I have a test, I take like 2 days off of my fitness routine because I get so worked up and worried about the test that I can't do anything but study. I can't focus on anything. I can't do anything but play on Facebook and look at Instagram because I'm so overwhelmed. So I see here, I didn't go to the gym. I took 17 naps. So keeping track of what you're actually doing may help you see patterns in why you don't reach your goals or what you're doing special on the days that you do reach your goals. So you choose how you want to keep track of progress. But when it's your clients and your patients, you'll see people have lots of different styles. Some people just want to make a check mark. I did what I was supposed to do. Some people want to write themselves an entire story. This is what happened. This is why I think it happened. Go with whatever works best for them. That's what's going to help in the long run. Here's a great example talking about our frequency, intensity, time, and type with each component of health-related physical fitness. So if your goals are flexibility goals, that's what your FITT might look like. Your goals are muscular strength training there in the orange column, the frequency, the intensity, the time, and the type. You can absolutely work on more than one goal at a time. So maybe your goals are cardio and strength. Like I said previously, you're probably going to want to focus in on one area that you really want to improve, but maybe you want to do both of those. The cardio says 3 to 7 times or sessions per week, strength training 2 to 3 sessions per week. Can you do both in one day? Absolutely. So maybe the 3 days you do cardio are Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and the 3 days you do your strength training are Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That's okay. These don't have to be done in opposition of each other. You don't have to just pick one type of exercise every single time you go to the gym or you go to exercise. So you can combine them, but if this was someone's actual plan and they're doing all 4 of these every single week, it's probably going to be a lot. It's going to add up to a lot of exercise, and unless you're an athlete and you've got a lot of time in your schedule for this type of thing, it can be really overwhelming. So most people just can pick 1 or 2 areas at a time. Here's another example of how you might chart your progress. So maybe you like spreadsheets and you're actually going to create a spreadsheet with Monday through Sunday written out. Here we've got Dylan's training log for a week from September 9th through the 15th. And then we've got 2 different types of plans. Conventional training plan there on the top, more of a high intensity interval training plan on the bottom. Yours can look however you'd like for it to look, but this is a really nice example. If you're a numbers person and you like to be able to see what you did in black and white, this would be a great way to do it. You could do it on Excel pretty easily, put together a spreadsheet like this. Now, when you're planning this routine, and it says at the top weekly routine, but remember, you want to think about it as weekly, meaning, okay, 5 out of the 7 days, I'm going to exercise. This is exactly what I'm going to do each of those 5 days. If you're not an athlete in a really specific field, you're someone who just wants to be in better shape, be healthier, be more muscular, be more lean, then you go for a variety of things. You might want to do that cross training that we discussed earlier this semester, have some interval training in there. You're more likely to stick with it if you're not doing the exact same thing over and over and over, unless you're a person that really likes repetition. Realistic intensity for your current fitness level. If your goal is to eventually become a high-level athlete, but you're not there quite yet, keep that goal in mind. That's your long-term goal, but your short-term goals should be realistic for where you're at right now. So maybe in the short term, you're doing more moderate intensity activity. Doesn't mean you won't get there, but do something that's safe and realistic for you so you don't get hurt and you don't get burnt out. Any special health issues you have, you or this is your client, this is your patient. If someone is pregnant, then that's something they probably want to just talk to their doctor about. If someone has had a heart attack, if you have had an injury recently, something musculoskeletal, you pulled something, you actually tore something, you've had surgery, make sure you're thinking about those things. You have to listen to your body. And if you're just going to ignore significant health issues, eventually it's going to come back and get you. You might be able to start at a really high intensity, but your body's going to tell you at some point, hey, remember that injury? It's still a problem, so slow down. Or remember that we're pregnant. Remember that your heart isn't as healthy as it used to be. Let's dial it back and work our way up to where we want to be. Actually include rest and recovery in your plan. That's really important to avoid that overtraining that we've previously discussed. So have days where you don't do much of anything, and actually tell yourself, this is what I'll do on those days. I might do some yoga. I'll allow myself to walk or jog. But even if my friends call and they want to go play a pickup game of soccer, or my training buddy calls and says, hey, let's go to the gym, that's my rest day. I'm not going to compromise on that, because I'm only going to allow myself to go X number of days without a rest. You get those gains and you develop that hypertrophy when you rest. That's not a myth. So whenever you hear, well, the real growth, the real increases in strength occur during rest, there is truth to that. So if you're never getting any rest, you're not giving your body the opportunity to get those optimal gains that you're looking for. Make sure there's flexibility training. So if your goal is not to become more flexible, that doesn't mean that you've got to do 30 minutes of stretching 5 days a week, but flexibility is a really important component that's related to all of the other 4 components. So it might not be the primary focus of your program, but if you're doing anything physical, have at least a little bit of flexibility training in there to help yourself try to prevent injury. Some general safety guidelines that we talk about in every chapter, and you've seen them over and over, and you're like, I know, I get it, but this stuff is important, and we want to keep pointing it out because we've all done this. Even though we might know better, sometimes we want to keep up with other people, we want results really fast, we lose patience, so we don't focus on these things like we should. Begin gradually, progress slowly, use those principles that we talked about earlier in the semester. You should use that 10% rule. You should make sure that you're giving yourself time for recovery and recuperation. Have someone that you work out with or someone that holds you accountable. Like I mentioned to you guys in class, I have a friend who I don't really work out with all the time, but I send texts back and forth to, kind of poking fun at each other, kind of joking around like, hey, this is how much I've been working out. This is how much I've been lifting, but you're doing nothing and being lazy. So someone that you can talk to and can motivate you, even if you're not always together, even if they're not always there with you. Variety of activities, we've talked about that. And keep in mind that you're going to have issues. You're going to work double shifts. You're going to have finals week. You're going to have times where things are really stressful with your family or your roommate, someone moves, someone gets married, passes away. Know that that's going to happen, and that's okay. That doesn't mean that you're totally off track. It might just require a little more planning. You may have to be more careful about how you're spending your time, and remember that you'll do what's important. So whatever's most important to you, that's what you'll get done. If that's socializing, then that's what's going to happen. If that's taking care of your body, that's what's going to happen. If it's your schoolwork, that's what you'll focus on. So you're going to focus in naturally and automatically on what really matters to you. If there's more than one thing, if you've got 2 or 3 things that you really care about and want to get done, you're just going to have to plan and stay focused on all of them so that some of the areas don't get neglected. Plan on having those times where you fall off the wagon, and then have some sort of strategy to get back up and get back to it. I know this weekend's going to be really stressful. I've got 3 days of family in town. I never take 3 days off from my fitness routine, but I'm probably going to have to. So what am I going to do about it? Well, Monday, I'm going to make sure that I have had enough sleep, I drink enough water, I have my clothes packed and with me whenever I go to school, so that when I'm at school on my break, I have no excuse to skip going to the gym. I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to think of it as a positive thing. I feel great because I had a rest, I had a break, I'm ready to hit it really hard and do my best. So use those times when things don't go great with your fitness routine as motivation and as much needed rest so that when you get back to it, you feel even better. It's not a setback, it's a little bit of a reset. Combine exercise, obviously, with other healthy behaviors. And the great thing about having a fitness routine is when you exercise, you tend to want to eat a little bit better because you feel like seeing results is important, and you know you're not going to do that if you totally let your nutrition go. When you exercise, you're probably a little less likely to smoke or drink too much because you know that offsets or counteracts the goals that you're trying to reach with your exercise. So trying to keep everything in balance, trying to focus on mostly doing the good things, less of the bad things. Here's another example. These are all in your slides, so you actually have them in writing. You could use this as your routine and modify it. Take a pen or just go online and rewrite it a little bit. But here are some great examples once again. Conventional training plan and then more of an interval training plan. We've talked about the difference between interval training and more of that long, slow cardio. Here you go. Here's some examples in numbers. I get a lot of questions throughout the semester about what kind of routine should I be doing? These are my goals. You can get a lot of info from these slides, and then feel free to ask me. We can tweak it as needed so that you can reach your goals for your 30-day challenge and beyond. Once again, sample program. The last one was beginner. Maybe you've never worked out before. It's been a really long time. This is intermediate. So this is someone who says, okay, well, I've been working out for a while, but I can't say I've really had a set plan. I kind of just walk in, see whatever's empty, do whatever my friends are doing. I don't really have like a set way of doing things. Here's a great example of a plan for someone who's at that level of, I know what I'm doing in the gym, but I don't really have, I have goals, but I don't really have a set A, B, C, D of how I'm going to reach those goals. Maybe you go for something more like this, an intermediate plan. You've been doing this for a while, you want to see more results, you want to increase volume a little bit, increase that frequency and the amount of time that you're spending. Here you go. Here's our program for someone who's been working out for a few months, a few years, and wants to do something different to see more results or different results. Here are a couple examples of plans. You'll find a ton with a Google search. So Google high intensity interval training, HIIT plan for strength gains, HIIT plan for endurance gains, training plan to be more explosive, and you're going to find lots of different things. The purpose of this class is to give you the tools to be able to look at those plans and say, okay, this looks like a good plan. This one maybe not as great because I see that you're doing a lot of the same exercises day after day, and that's probably not so great for your joints. Or the volume looks like a lot. There's probably not any time for recovery. They don't give you any rest days. That's probably not great for you. So the purpose of this class isn't to set every single one of you up, okay, everybody needs to exercise and this is how you need to do it. It's if you want to, or if your clients or your patients want to, you've got the tools to make a realistic plan for your specific goals, your patient specific goals. You've got a toolbox that you can choose from and put together something on your own in a smart way, in a safe way. Now, the thing that is kind of not as exciting about fitness or exercise as maybe other things you'll do in your life is it is a lifelong thing, which is exciting in that you can always start. You can always stop and restart, but not so exciting because you can't bank it. If I were to tell you all right now, I've got this great workout plan, it's going to be hard, you're going to be miserable, you're going to puke, but if you do it for the next 90 days, you'll never have to work out again in your life, and you'll keep all the adaptations you made. So in 90 days, you got to work, but whatever hypertrophy you see, you get six-pack abs, you're a really fast runner by the end, you're a great basketball player, you'll be that way forever. And you don't ever have to work out again. You don't have to run again. You can eat whatever you want. You don't have to lift weights. I'd sign up for that. I'd pay all my money for that. You probably would give it a try too. If you don't use it, you lose it. The principle of reversibility. So as cool as it would be to say, you just get really, really fit and then you hang on to it forever, it's a lifelong thing. So whenever you go through big changes, like going to school, getting married, starting a family, then there are those unfortunate things that happen, like people get divorced, people pass away, people lose their home, file for bankruptcy. You may fall off the wagon. You may stop the process. You can always restart. This is not something that goes away. You may need to change what you're doing as your body changes. So whether you have children, have a major surgery, get into an accident, or you just get older, your body is going to change. There's really nothing you can do about it. That doesn't mean you ever have to stop exercising, you ever have to stop working on your fitness. Just the way you do it might be a little bit different. You have to pay attention to what your body is trying to tell you and not just focus on, well, if I want to look this way, if I want to play this way, I have to do at least this much every day forever. If you're in pain and your body's starting to break down, there may be a better way to achieve your goals. You may have to adjust your goals, but it's still better than nothing. So we talk about daily exercise. This is interesting because if you look at plans for getting stronger, getting faster, having better endurance, we talk over and over about the importance of rest and recovery. They are both really important. You have to rest. You have to allow time for hypertrophy to occur. But at least a little bit of exercise every day helps keep you on track, helps you stick to a plan. So while you may not strength train every day, and you may not do cardio endurance exercises every day, or even stretch every day, you should at least choose one of those components every day of the week. So your rest days may not be just laying around on the couch doing nothing days. You may focus on flexibility on those days because it's not as taxing on your body. Or maybe you do long, slow cardio, like a walk or a jog. At least a little bit of exercise every day. Why? Because we found that mortality rates, or the amount of times people are dying, are 20 to 30% lower over a given period among people who expend at least 1,000 calories in physical activity, not exercise, physical activity every week. In other words, you're less likely to die young if you do at least a little something most days of the week. 1,000 calories through physical activity throughout 7 days means you're not really doing much, but you're at least getting up and walking around your house, your neighborhood, campus, staying physically active. If you exercise, these numbers get even higher, or the mortality rate goes down even more. So if there are even more calories expended through not just physical activity, but exercise, our mortality rates adjust more. That's a good thing. That's what we want. We want to live healthier. You will see charts like this all the time. It's talking about different types of sports or dance. We've got karate, we've got water skiing. Who in here doesn't do a ton of water skiing in Las Vegas? And we've got what it's going to do for your strength and endurance, your flexibility. The thing I'm not crazy about is the caloric expenditure. So how many calories will you burn per minute doing that thing? We've talked about this before. I just want to touch on it again. Look at how big those ranges are. Racquetball, we can go from 6 to 12 calories per minute. Well, one of those numbers is double the other. Running, 8 calories, 15 calories, almost double. So always take these kinds of things with a grain of salt. If you really care about how many calories you're burning during exercise, consider investing in something like a Fitbit that's actually going to look at your personal metabolism. Plugging in your height, your weight, your age, and the exercise you're doing to some kind of online calculator is a really rough estimate. So if you're a numbers person and you really like to know calories, look into buying something that's actually going to track your own metabolism, not just using some kind of basically calculator, because the calculator is going to give you a big, huge range like this. You're going to say, I played tennis for an hour. the calculator is going to tell you anywhere between 500 and 1200 calories burned. That's a huge gap in there. Your body was probably somewhere in the middle. So if you use those calories then to think of how much fuel you need throughout a day, you're not going to have a great number. So look into Fitbit or any other tracker that you actually wear on your body. Let's talk fitness during pregnancy. This is a specialty area, just like if you're going to work with seniors or elderly people, if you're going to work with differently abled people. There are other specialty areas that we're not going to get into, but we definitely could, like people with serious diseases like cancer. Maybe you want to work with kids or people with autism. Picking a specialty and becoming really good in that niche market is an awesome way to make yourself marketable as a personal trainer, as a physical therapist. So if you're thinking about these fields, but they are competitive, if that scares you at all and you're thinking, man, pretty much everyone I'm friends with wants to go into PT school, or I know a lot of personal trainers who say that they can't really make great money, there's not a lot of work out there. Maybe consider one of these sub areas that you are interested in and then finding everything you can about it. Certifications, special classes that can make you an expert in how people in those areas should exercise or should rehab, because that will definitely give you a leg up over the competition. So let's talk pregnancy specifically. Obviously, when someone is pregnant, it's very important that their doctor gives them clearance to exercise, and the doctor be aware of what it is they're currently doing. I exercised regularly before I became pregnant, and my doctor's recommendation when I was pregnant and I went to an OB was keep doing what you're doing, and when things hurt or are painful, uncomfortable, you feel dizzy, you feel nauseous, stop and don't go that hard next time. So depending on how the woman's fitness level was to begin with, if she already exercised, if she was a healthy body fat percentage, overweight, underweight, all of those things need to be taken into consideration. And a medical doctor is probably the best person to quickly analyze all of that info before they see you as the person who specifically deals with exercise or injury rehab. There are a lot of benefits of exercising while pregnant, whether that's starting a light exercise routine or continuing an exercise routine. Studies have proven that there's less weight gain. A lot of pregnancy weight gain nowadays is unnecessary, and that's unfortunate. We'll talk about that more on the next slide. Being less uncomfortable is a relative term. Whether you exercise or not, I think everyone kind of gets to the point where they don't feel so great. It's not always the most physically pleasant experience, but maybe you can decrease the amount of being uncomfortable, generally feeling heavy, back pain, having difficulty sleeping, things like that. Shorter labor. Studies have shown that exercising during pregnancy decreases labor time in active labor on an average by a third, which may not sound like a lot if you or your mom or someone you know has talked about a 3-hour labor or a 4-hour labor. I was in labor with my child for 30 hours. So if decreasing by a third is a real thing, then 30 hours, I will definitely take 30 hours and have decreased it by almost a dozen hours. So shorter labor and possibly the prevention or the treatment of gestational diabetes. With women gaining very large, excessively large amounts of weight during pregnancy, we've seen a large increase in the number of women being diagnosed with diabetes while pregnant, gestational diabetes, a form of type 2 diabetes that will or should go away post-pregnancy. It should be a relatively rare condition. Unfortunately, it's becoming very, very common, in part because of excessive weight gain. So if you're not gaining too much weight, you're probably not going to get diagnosed with gestational diabetes, which is a good thing because it's diabetes that can affect not only the mom while pregnant and the baby while she's pregnant, but it can affect both of them after the baby has been born. So something we want to avoid. Now, some general fitness guidelines for pregnancy. You're not going to want to increase the amount of exercise that you perform from before you were pregnant. So if you were an athlete and you exercised 4 hours a day before becoming pregnant, can you still exercise 4 hours a day? In the beginning of the pregnancy especially, absolutely. As long as your doctor clears it, there's probably no reason you can't. Are you going to want to go from a half hour of exercise every day to 4 hours of exercise a day while pregnant? Probably not the safest idea, probably not the best idea. Now, the exception here, I would have to say, I might disagree a little bit with the slides, is if you currently weren't doing any exercise and you want to start a gentle, low impact exercise routine while pregnant because finding out you were pregnant inspired you to want to do a little bit better with your health and be more health conscious, there are lots of doctors, most doctors would agree that that's perfectly safe. So not increasing the amount of exercise unless you're going from being sedentary to doing some exercise. You want to avoid sports, obviously, where you are going to get hurt. So high impact sports where people are making physical contact, getting tackled, getting pushed, sports where there's a high risk of falling, a lot of jumping. And this would be during the end of pregnancy. First trimester, those are probably not going to be very applicable rules, but the more pregnant a woman becomes, those are things she wants to consider. Avoid exercises where you're lying on your back after the first trimester. So after about the 3rd month of pregnancy, probably not going to want to lie flat on your back for too long of a period of time. If you are going to do an ab exercise, you can do them right up until you have a baby. You're just going to want to do them standing or lying on your side or on in a kneeling position, not laying flat on your back doing crunches or sit-ups. During the last trimester, so 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th month of being pregnant, avoiding jerking movements, jumping, wearing supportive footwear, and something to actually support your stomach. They make lots of different support belts. We've kind of poked fun before of waist trainers in this class, and this idea of wearing a corset like it's going to decrease body fat. We're not talking here about a corset or a waist trainer, but more like a support belt that you might see someone wear at a store like Lowe's or Home Depot, or a weightlifter who's going to lift a large amount of weight, something that supports the lower back and supports the belly so that you're not going to overstretch or strain any of the muscles or ligaments that are trying to keep everything in place. And then this one's really important. I'd like for you to underline or emphasize this in your notes. Pregnant women should avoid getting too hot, especially if it's humid. The temperature of a woman's body is 1 to 2 degrees less than the temperature of the baby's body. So if mom is exercising, pregnant mom is exercising, and she gets her body temperature up to, let's say 101 degrees, baby's at probably 102 to 103, which is getting to the point where it might not be safe for that developing baby. So this is the one recommendation that even if you have someone who is in phenomenal shape, plays sports, wants to continue to keep their fitness up, the one thing you want to caution them about is making sure they don't get too hot, keeping track of their temperature. And when they get to the point where they notice they're sweating a lot, they actually feel hot, they feel excessively thirsty or maybe dizzy, they need to slow down, take breaks, decrease the intensity, get out of the heat if they can, because you don't want to cook a baby. You don't want to cook that unborn baby by raising its temperature too high in the womb during vigorous activity. A few more recommendations. Hydration, same concept. Not all of the fluid that a mom takes in is going to go to baby, so she wants to make sure that she's got plenty for herself and the developing fetus. Probably a good idea to monitor intensity with that RPE scale we've talked about before, 6 to 20 correlating with approximate heart rate, and stay somewhere between 12 to 14, about 120 to 140 beats per minute. A heart rate monitor would be a fabulous tool. Stopping and actually taking your pulse is another great tool. Might not consider this a hard and fast rule in that pregnant athlete, but for most women, most pregnant women, that's a really good recommendation. An RPE of 12, 13, 14 during their hardest portion of the workout. And this is probably great recommendations for anyone. You're going to want to stop if you can't breathe, feel dizzy, tingling, start bleeding from different parts of your body. But especially with a pregnant woman, these are points in time where she's probably going to want to call her doctor or just go straight to the ER. And 9 out of 10 times, it will be nothing, but it's a good idea just to check. If she's resistance athlete, if she does a lot of strength training, she's probably going to decrease the intensity a little, likely decreasing it by using less weight and higher reps, avoiding static holds or the Valsalva maneuver, which is a fancy and polite way to say when you're sitting on the toilet and you're trying to have a bowel movement and you hold your breath and push down. We want to avoid holding our breath and pushing down while pregnant. Not just because if you are really pregnant, that's kind of how you start the process or help the process of labor, but because it causes changes in our blood pressure and our heart rate. It'll do the same thing to baby. We don't want to mess with baby's heart rate and blood pressure. This last part is really important. I'd like for you to underline this. I believe it's the last point on the slide. The increase in calories for a pregnant woman is going to vary, and it's going to vary depending on what portion of her pregnancy she's in, first, second, or third trimester. It's also going to vary depending on her body fat percentage at the beginning of the pregnancy. A woman who started at a healthy body fat percentage probably needs to gain between 25 to 35 pounds for her pregnancy. If she started at a high body fat percentage, maybe was overweight or obese, she probably needs to gain less than 25 pounds. If she had too low of a body fat percentage, then more than 35 pounds of weight gain may be recommended. You can name examples. I feel confident you've got examples in your everyday life. I have friends and family members who gained 50, 60, 75, 100 pounds while pregnant. This is more than what's necessary for a healthy baby. And a lot of factors come into play here. There's swelling due to the retention of water. Some women are put on bed rest and aren't allowed to exercise at all during their pregnancy for safety reasons having to do with the baby. But for a lot of women, it's just that they're taking in more calories than they need. You are not eating for two when pregnant. You're eating for yourself, and an extra 300 calories is less than what you'd find in one small drink from Starbucks. It's an apple and a container of yogurt, or string cheese and a handful of almonds or peanuts or walnuts. So most pregnant women really only need about 300 extra calories per day and a weight gain of about 25 to 35 pounds. Their doctor, or your doctor will obviously tell you the right amount for your body, but most people, it's going to be about 25 to 35 pounds per pregnancy. So through exercise, we're trying to make sure that we're eating healthy, we're eating the right amount, because those tend to go hand in hand, and avoid excessive weight gain, which leads to gestational diabetes. All of these things are kind of interconnected. So I'd like for you to know that number, because I think even though we know as a society that the whole eating for two thing probably isn't true, we all say it. I've said it before to pregnant friends or about myself, kind of jokingly while pregnant. Oh, eating for two. Eating for yourself and an extra 300 calories, which really isn't that much. That adds up pretty quickly. You're going to get that much in a can of pop and then like 1 or 2 pieces of candy. So it's not even really a whole extra meal per day. Now let's shift gears a little and talk about differently abled people. It says here, fitness for people with disabilities. Probably the more correct term would be people with different abilities. And if we're talking about physical abilities, we can discuss adaptive and inclusive sports. So adaptive sports are played with by people with a different ability only. The picture you see here would be an example. All of the guys on this basketball team are in wheelchairs. So there's not a mixture of guys in wheelchairs and people without wheelchairs. It's just people with the same abilities so that they're all on an even playing field. Inclusive sports are played by people with or without the different abilities. So if this picture had some guys in wheelchairs and some guys up and running or using arm braces, that would be an inclusive sport, meaning you can play this whether you have these abilities or different abilities. Shifting gears once again, older adults, seniors or people that are elderly. What do we expect as we get older? A lot of not so fun things. These are normal, they're natural, and they're supposed to happen. So you will have a lower VO2 max as you get older. You'll have a higher body fat percentage, decrease in muscle mass, in bone mass. Joints will begin to deteriorate. It's like a car. It's machinery. We've talked about this before. Your heart is a machine. Eventually the parts wear out. The one thing that I always like to point out on here, because you know all of these, loss of memory, we know that, loss of brain cells, you probably think of that when you think of loss of memory. The one I like to point out and ask you guys to underline in your notes, changes in vision, taste, and smell. You know that older person, that grandma, that great uncle, the next door neighbor who always has on way too much perfume and it's just overwhelming, or maybe isn't able to bathe themselves and has that like overwhelming BO, and every time you're around this person you're like, oh, I just want to throw up. I have no idea how they can stand that. Can't they smell that? Can't they tell they have on way too much cologne or that they stink? As people get older, they notice a decrease, there's a noticeable decrease in taste and smell. So we know about vision and hearing. We picture people that live to their 80s and 90s with glasses and hearing aids. But what you may not have been so aware of is there are significant decreases. You break down the machinery that's in charge of your sense of smell and your sense of taste. Over time, the parts wear out. So the next time you go to that great aunt's house and she serves you that super salty food, or your grandpa eats nothing but sugar, just like pours pure sugar down his throat, and you're like, man, how can he stand so much sweet? As people get older, that may not taste that salty to them. That may not smell so strong. They may faintly smell the perfume that you feel like they probably bathed in, or they may barely be able to taste that hot sauce. It's just a little kick that's making you tear up and your snot is running down your face. So it's not that older people are just so out of touch with I guess everyone else or reality that they don't care what other people think. To them, that really may be just a little bit of spice or just a little bit of smell. So important to be compassionate and to be sensitive and aware of these things. When you have that patient who comes into your practice and maybe he doesn't smell so nice, or you have that client who comes into the gym and brings you food from home and you're like, oh man, I know I have to take a bite and act polite, but whew, it's overwhelming. They may not have any awareness of it. So something to make your coworkers and your staff, if you're in a position where you work with other people, aware of, so that everyone knows to be sensitive and to be gentle about issues like that. Exercise is not going to make any of these things not happen. They are going to happen. We want it to be a slow, gradual change. We want to have a high quality of life for as long as possible. Exercise is one of the ways we can do that. So what should people do as they get older? It's kind of like with pregnancy. What did they do before? If you had someone come to you and they're a marathon runner, they're an Ironman, they're really, really fit, you're going to start at the level they're at. You're not going to scale them back and say, well, I know that you have this phenomenal endurance and you're really strong, but you're over the age of 45 and you're a man, so I'm going to give you some lighter, easier exercises. These are people that come to you wanting to exercise for the first time, or maybe the first time in a long time. Men over 45, women over 55. As a general rule of thumb, ask for a doctor's note. Ask for a doctor's clearance for exercise. Why the gap in age here? So much younger for men than women. Up until about 55, we're going to assume most women haven't gone through menopause yet. The estrogen in their bodies has a protective effect against heart disease and heart attacks. So we tend to see heart attacks and heart disease in men at slightly younger ages. partly because of that android fat storage that we talked about in class, and partly because they have higher levels of testosterone, lower levels of estrogen. In this case, the estrogen is actually a good thing. So that would be the reason for that big age gap between the two. Non-weight bearing exercises, so let's maybe use an elliptical instead of run, or swim instead of walk. Weight-bearing exercises are really important, but we want to save the weight-bearing stuff for more strength training, things that are slow, controlled, and you're less likely to fall. You can spot someone doing squats. You can't spot someone while they run on a track or they walk on a treadmill. Intensity at the lower end of the target heart rate range, 3 to 4 times per week. Modifications if the person has injuries, they have osteoporosis, they have arthritis. Pay attention to those things, do your research, and make sure the exercises you're giving them aren't going to make those problems or those conditions worse. Once again, this is an athlete coming to you saying, I feel great, I want to do even better. We're not going to scale them back. This is someone who is starting from scratch, just wants to be healthier and a better quality of life. Now, last but not least, I said in the beginning, maybe your goals aren't fitness related, maybe they're wellness related. So how does the wellness plan differ from the fitness plan? Your goal is saving money. Your goal is getting more sleep, studying more. Put it down in writing, specific, measurable, something you can actually achieve that's realistic and has a timeline to it. This is the day I'm going to do it by. Which wellness concept does it fall under? So now we're not looking at the 5 components of health-related physical fitness. We're going all the way back, way back to the first couple days of class with that wellness wheel where we talked about physical versus emotional versus spiritual. Which one does it fall under? Is it physical, like diet, or maybe sexual health, sexually transmitted infections? Is it more stress related, so it's maybe spiritual in your opinion, or emotional? What does it fall under? Then you actually write down your plan, a specific measurable plan. If you have the book or you'd like to borrow my book, there's a lot of info in chapter 1 on if your change isn't an exercise goal, it's more one of those wellness concepts, what can you do about it? So write your plan, have something specific and detailed, 10 minutes per day, $1 per day, 5 minutes less of something, 1 cup less of something specific that you can measure, and then monitor it. Make that check mark every time you do that thing or you don't do that thing. Write notes to yourself. This is why it happened. This is why it didn't happen, so that you can go back and reflect on how you're doing. Once again, we're going back to our goals and we're talking about FIT, giving you guys flexibility, strength, high intensity interval training. So making sure you've got a lot of different options, even just in this slideshow, of ways you could set up your behavior change project, what it could look like. I skipped ahead. There was a video there. Feel free to watch it in the slideshow that is set up in your notes with blanks. Let's talk tips for success. Little tiny goals that you can easily reach are going to make you feel a lot better about yourself than big goals that are just another stressful thing you've got to try to do every day. Just another thing to forget, another thing to put off, another thing to worry about. So little tiny goals, build your way up. Try to be consistent. If you know this is something you're going to do better with, if you have someone kind of motivating you or getting on your case about it, talk to a friend, a family member, someone you know that will help you be persistent, help you stick with it. Keep in mind, you are going to have changes in your schedule and your routine. Have a little plan for that. On days when I can't make it to the gym, I got this video that I'm going to do online at home. On days that I can't cook my own food, this is where I'm going to buy my meals from, because it's a pretty healthy option. Know that even then, you're going to have days where it won't work. Use them to motivate you. Use them to learn and to help you do better, not to make you feel frustrated that you're not reaching your goals. Here is our summary slide, as usual, showing us all the things that we just talked about. Kind of a review. If you have any questions about this, as I said, we're not doing this chapter in class, so please feel free to shoot me an email or talk to me before or after lecture, sometime between now and that second test, so I can make sure everything was really clear and concise and you guys are well prepared for that next exam when we talk about goal setting, and so that you can use this for your project, important stuff for your behavior. Thank you very, very much for taking the time during your little break to watch this, and I hope you guys enjoy your time off.